Welcome to Homestead Reptile. Today with me is Bump. She is a southern toad. She's a species that is native to North America. I'm going to talk about 3 other species of toad. So Bump was a retired classroom pet. The students absolutely loved her. They named her Bump on Log. So Bump is unusual for her species. She hates people. Most toads are pretty chill with people. She is a very uninterested toad, and she's just unsocial. I don't know if it's the trauma of being around a bunch of admiring students that absolutely loved her and she was just not for it. But Bump is a southern toad. So southern toads are a pretty large species of North American toad. They get anywhere between males normally around 2 inches, females around 3 inches, but you can get some massive whopper females that are 4 inches. The other species of toad I'm going to talk about are the American toads. They're about the same size range, maybe give an inch or two. And then we have the oak toad, which the oak toad is an absolutely small toad. So oak toads are the smallest toad of North America, native toad. So they get about 2 inches. They are small. Males are like an inch, 0.5. Females, big females are about 2 inches. So how you can tell the difference between a southern toad and an American toad. So southern toads have a bumpy ridge above their eyes. Kind of think of it like a gargoyle gecko. They have these bumpy ridges. Now, like gargoyle geckos, you can have some individuals that have really big ones, some that have really small ones, some that have more of the medium size. So Bump is sort of in a medium-large area. She has pretty big ones. And American toads do not have. And here's some examples of some American toads. You can really tell they pretty much just have a smooth, flat head. And then to tell the difference between an oak toad and all these, the size. Oak toads are super, super small. They have normally bright yellow stripes. They're kind of flatter, rounder. So oak toads are the toads that are going to be the most difficult to get. You can still find them, but they're more difficult to find than all the other species. So toads are incredibly easy to care for. So on the internet, when you Google around toad care, they'll say go for a 10-gallon. I would say for some of the smaller species and the young toads, a 10 gallon's fine. But I would say as your toad gets larger, give them more space. They are very active. They are nocturnal, but they're actually extremely active. So I would say go anywhere from around a 20 to larger. And toads, you can cohab with each other. You can keep toads together. You can actually keep different species of toad, especially if you're not going to purposely breed. And you have to set things up to actually get a toad to breed. You have to rain chamber it. You have to do a ton of stuff to encourage them to breed. So you can keep different species very easily, especially if they're all North American species. They have the same range, so I can keep this American toad with a southern toad very, very, very easily. The only one that I wouldn't keep with these guys are oak toads. Oak toads are too small. They could be potential meals for really large southern toads. It's not a good idea. And they're going to be slightly outcompeted for food. So keep your small species of toads with your small species of toads. So oak toads should really just be with oak toads. So food, they are insect eaters. They will eat pretty much anything. Toads, the American toad, you can see the spotting on their belly. So this is another way to tell a American toad from a southern toad. So American toads normally have a ton of spotting all over their belly. So this is not always the best way to tell, because this girl right here, she has some spotting, but not a ton of spotting. So they can vary in some that have a ton of spotting all over their body and some that do not. Food, they'll eat pretty much any insect they can fit in their mouth. They're very, very easy to feed. Supplement with calcium and multivitamins, you'll be good. Give them a bowl large enough for them to submerge in and easy enough for them to get out, so something shallow. Toads are not the best swimmers. They can drown very, very easily, so be careful of that. So you've noticed that I'm not wearing gloves when I'm handling my toads. So I wash my hands. There's no soap, perfumes, or anything on my hands, and I can hold my toads. So I wouldn't suggest this for the majority of species of frog. You want to wear gloves and moisten them too. Toads are tougher, so they have thicker skin. They don't pick up as much nasty stuff in their environment. That's why they're all over the place. They're a tough species. They have incredibly strong legs and strong arms. So they hop, but what they do, they crawl. They do a bit of an army crawl. So what here I'm pointing to are the crests. You can see them here. You can see how large they are. And I'm also showing you the protonoid gland right here, this big gland. So toads, all toad species are poisonous. So if something came over and attacked Bump, bit her, she would release her toxins into the the predator's mouth, and the predator would spit the toad out, get very sick, and possibly die. So they are, you can see this little American toad also has it too, but you can also see those ridges above her eyes. You can see how much smaller they are, and you can tell the difference. So this girl is a bit of a more of a redder toned American toad, and then Bump is more of that classic green type of toad. So you can see that here. So you can kind of see the difference in how big the glands are. So again, I've been looking up how toxic they truly are. So some studies say that they have enough toxin to kill a 75-pound animal. So as long as you're not like sucking on your toads and chewing on them, you're going to be fine. I have never had a toad just like release its poison. You kind of have to like press on them and kind of like chew on them a bit, and really just scaring them to do that. So that's their last defense. They want to try to hop away, they'll pee themselves, they'll croak at you, they'll do anything besides that to get away. But I've never been accidentally poisoned by my toad, and there's not a lot of incidents of accidental toad poisoning unless you're chewing on them. So I suggest people, when you have toads, not to chew on your toads, and you'll be safe. So you're more likely to make your toad sick than your toad's going to make you sick. They're great pets. They have a lot of personality. They are very, very active, actually. So a lot of people think toads are inactive. Toads are very active. So they might have the body plan of a Pac-Man frog, but they're completely different. So they are ambush predators, but they move around a lot more through their territories. They move and search out new places to find food. They're very, very, very active. So if you can provide your toad with a larger enclosure, go for it. Now, cohabiting toads together. You can cohab different species of North American toads. So like a Fowler's toad, which is not one of the species I'm talking about here, but you could do a Fowler's toad, an American toad, and a Southern toad. You can do those all easily together. They're all the same size. They're not going to accidentally breed unless you set up a rain chamber and you're really prepping them to breed. But unless you're doing that, you don't have the problem with accidental breeding. You kind of really have to do it on purpose. So, great pets, easy to care for. They don't need UVB. They don't need heat. Your room temperature is fine. They actually, if it gets too hot, they will bury themselves into their substrate to try to get away from the heat. This is a great species to do bioactive enclosures. You can do some amazing stuff. I've also noticed my toads and toads that I've noticed in the wild, they actually do climb quite a bit. So their legs are incredibly strong. They are the bodybuilders of the amphibian world. They are strong. They have strong legs. They have strong front legs. They're short, stout, and strong. So they can climb up surfaces. Their toes are strong, so they can latch their toes into little cracks and they can just climb up. So you might want to think about providing them something to climb on. They really, really enjoy it. I've seen toads up in like bushes, big chunky toads. I've seen toads up in like 7-foot pots. It's like, how'd you get up there? You didn't hop up that high. You climbed up that high. Don't know how you managed it, but you did. So they're very easy to feed. They're easy to care for. They're easy to handle. You're not going to accidentally poison yourself if you don't eat your toad. So don't eat your toad. They're a lot of fun to have. They're a great North American species. I would say the main con to toads are the majority of North American species of toads, 99.9% of them, are wild caught. They just are. They're so common. They're not in danger. They're easy to field collect. It doesn't make sense for breeders to captive breed them. And captive breeding them is difficult, actually. So you have to set up a rain chamber. You have to prep them. There's like so much more that goes into toad breeding than you'd think. It's easier to just go out in the wild and just grab a few toads, medicate them for diseases, and then just sell them off. It's so much easier to do that than it is to breed them. I only know of one breeder who's consistently breeding toads in captivity, North American species of toad, and they're all sold out. I really wanted to get my hands on a few of their toads because the majority of the toads I have come from wild collected individuals. The only one that kind of doesn't is Bump, and she's a Craigslist toad. I know a little bit of her history, and she's kind of like a probable captive bred toad, but the other toads I've had have been wild caught individuals from different companies. So that's one thing to kind of understand that because they are wild caught, unless you get a very, very small one, if you get an adult sized one, you don't know their age, you don't know their health. They could have parasites, they could have a lot of problems. So you need to be prepared for that if you want to get toads. But most amphibians in general are wild caught. So again, if this was interesting to you, like and subscribe. We're showing off her little fingers right here. Look how strong her little fingers are. They have these cool little pads on it. Toads are so interesting. But tell me what you think. If you want a longer form video on toads, toad care, how to set up a toad enclosure, and just toad info, I love toads. They are super underrated. Like and subscribe.